I mean, Bertrude has stated that she's fine with staying down here. She just wants to help. So, while Bertrude is probably my favorite of the bunch to play,
for one last time, upon the fall
she's
of
staying.
Solium, dear reader, hear me for one last time. For soon, the few remaining stars shall fade away, leaving you stranded there for your remaining days in that forsaken land where you deserve to be. The rabble that you roused here in the Commonwealth shall be put down. The exiles whom you liberated all shall fall in line. But first, let us get on with this last liberation rite.
Yes, let's do that.
None other than yourselves. Each so unlike the glorious Nightwings of yore. 'Tis a shame that one of you shall soon be free, for you deserve each other.
Well, thank you for that. Alright, there we go. The pious burn in each of the triumvirates is present and prepared. But before the lone minstrel can concur as per the custom... Not another word. The demon Oralek slowly raises his clawed fingers to his mask. The false Nightwings have arrived at last. Long have I awaited this. My freedom once was stolen from me, then I was cheated of it, here upon this mountaintop. You may not attempt to take it from me once more. He stands there for a moment, silent. Then, Oralek dons his mask and stands prepared. May these damned rites cease forever for the misery which they caused. Plus 40 ashen coals. Nightwings, we shall not meet again after tonight, for the cycle of the rites is all but ended. Thus I would have your decision, on whose behalf you conduct this final liberation rite. The one whom you anoint, or else the exile, Oralek, shall be returned. Godspeed, reader. You know what is at stake better than I. I have utmost faith in you to make the best decision and conduct the rite with glory. Nightwings, the star's remaining light grows dim. Your decision, please. Okay. It is time now to choose if anyone among you shall go free this one last time. The rest of you shall remain in the downside to the end of your days. One by one you meet the gaze of your fellow exiles. Sir Gilman, Volfred, Bertrude. Your fellow exiles, your companions, your friends. Together you have come this far, but now the downside and the rites conspire to tear your group apart and disrupt your plan. Are you prepared to choose this one last time? Yes, for there's no turning back. With a glance, you reassure your fellow exiles that you know what to do.
One final opportunity for salvation.
Okay, we can anoint all of
The
them.
rest of you.
Should we send Volfred out to coordinate on top, or should we keep him here? I would really like to send Gilman. I mean, if the one who coordinates is out of reach of the other people from the Commonwealth, then he's harder to stop. He just has a bit of a harder time communicating. I suppose having him down here is also kind of keeping him safe. I will anoint Gilman.
Sir Gilman.
What has this knight done that he should warrant such a courtesy as this? Know that he shall strive with all his heart. Your choice is cast. As for your companions, you sense clarity of thought and purpose in each of them. They stand ready to support Sir Gilman as well as you.
Who shall be at his side?
Bertrude on top.
Bertrude.
Thy will is ours, reading one. Let the remaining stars shed their last light upon our ceremony here.
And Volfred.
Volfred.
Assuredly, my boy. Besides, we stand against Oralek. It is fitting that I should have to confront him myself. Well, we don't have much of a choice, do we?
It is done.
Those are to be my adversaries then. And who is it, I wonder, who asserts his will over that group?
You sense Oralek searching for you. almost reaching out to you.
You, the shadow of the false Nightwings. They are nothing to me, but you who would relinquish your own liberty for sake of them. Strange. It is fitting then that I should have to face one such as you.
Then Oralek stands at the ready, signaling for his two allies to do the same.
By the light of dawn, the cycle of the right shall cease. Let us see if we can finish this ordeal before that time.
The sky above begins to shudder. The final liberation rite is about to commence. Tarek! I am prepared, Celeste. Then let our song this evening shake the stars themselves. Aye, Celeste. Let us make sure of it.
Begin. The final chance at liberation.
Did not jump. Both of them burned up. Come on now. Come on, pick that up. Man, he's so slow though. Okay. Oh, he threw it just in time. For 7 points, okay.
You wear the raiments once again.
I could not simply stand by and do nothing, Oralek. Yet that is what you did. When last we stood together on this blasted mountain, I fell, you simply stood. Have you noticed how slow he is? Of course he just stood. Oralek, what shall it take for you to be convinced I took no part in your betrayal? Oralek seems to consider the question, but only for a moment. Give me my damn freedom, let me prevail here and now. Would you promise to uphold our plan, to bring about a better Commonwealth?
No, I make no promises, I owe you nothing.
Then I'm sorry, Oralek. My love of country comes before all else. More than your freedom, and our friendship is at stake.
Your love be damned, Wolfred. Let us stand as adversaries then.
Right, No. There we go. That's better, that's better.
The sky rains ash. Soon shall your pyres own mingle with them.
Just then the skies above begin to rain down fire, the final throes of the cycle of the rites, and the ending of the age. Oh, come on now. What is that? Valiant rebound at least. I just ran right into it. Oh, come on. Come on, Bertrude. Just... Oh, come on. Let's see how... yeah, he's faster. Man. Okay, come on, Bertrude. There we go. Hex of Victory, plus 30, plus 5 damage, 30 overall. Whew. Yeah, I messed that one up. Shame. No. That was... Oh!
How very sad for the true Nightwings.
And there we go, another Hex of Victory. Whew. Bertrude is very useful.
So the false Nightwings bear their fangs at last. But they cannot be your but that cannot be your finest effort. You think you deserve your freedom more than I? Then fight for it, damn you.
That is what we have been... Oh, come on now. Why? He should stay. He should stay where he lands, but he always goes back forwards. I always forget about that.
Poof. Do it, damn.
Oh, there we go. That was a close call. That was a close call there. Oral extends, breathing heavily. He looks back on the thin lick of flame that is his smoldering pyre before turning his attention back to your team, to your triumvirate. No. At least we got them as well. Okay, they're all gone, but what? Come on now! What the hell is? What the hell went on here?
Shan't do anything, reader. Unacceptable.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. I think I must have misclicked something.
All of you, you shall rot here. You shall rot as I have all these many years. You false Nightwings who would deny me once again my rightful liberty. You who deny that liberty to all of the triumvirates you face, and vanquish under the guise of the tradition of those blasted scribes. Come, let us continue with this glorious affair.
There we go. Now that's how you make use of that better. And there we go. That's one more.
There it is, at last.
Whew.
The Nightwings proved their worth. Rather convincingly, I must admit.
My hands are still shaking a little bit.
Thus ends the liberation rite. And thus, the scribes have chosen.
So many other guys.
Can it truly be this night, and all of us, we have indeed prevailed? You look upon Sir Gilman for what you expect shall be the last time you see each other. Any moment now, the Shimmer Bull shall engulf him. Any moment now, he shall return to glory and join with Wolfred's agents in the Commonwealth to help achieve the plan. Any moment now, the cycle of the rites shall end, until at last, the dawn of a new age. Any moment now.
And thus, the scribes have chosen. And thus, the scribes have chosen. And thus, the scribes have chosen. Oh. Nightwings. Reader. What have you done?
I did what I must. This knight is beginning to feel extraordinarily uneasy about things here. Each prior time upon the fall of Soliam, the Shimmer Pool has opened following the liberation rite and taken in whichever exile prevailed. But now, it is all is still, and the light of the stars above has all but died. You sense a growing fear that it is already too late, that the Shimmer Pool shall not reveal itself again. Orlek approaches, his head bowed.
The 8 scribes saved their greatest treachery for last.
Then something else catches his notice.
Wait.
A sudden rush of starlight cascades through the stillness of the summit. The Shimmer Pool has appeared again, different somehow, but open. Sir Gilman looks upon it, but does not it does not engulf him, or at least not yet.
It seems I was mistaken then. The 8 scribes, it is not their greatest treachery. It is their greatest jest. The Shimmer Pool is flung wide open. It seems that all are worthy now for freedom.
Oralek strides towards the Shimmer Pool, but... Halt, Oralek. Oralek glances over at the lone minstrel, almost in surprise. The Shimmer Pool has lost most of its strength. You step inside, and you shall surely drown. Of that I can assure you. He laughs to himself at this.
Then we have all been cheated.
No, the Shimmer Pool is revealed, and one of you may still return as planned. But as for who returns, Someone shall have to choose ere the last light of the star is extinguished and the rites cease to be. This is the final trial of the Scribes.
The final trial of the Scribes. Then our confrontation, the liberation rite. It all was meaningless.
No. The victor of the confrontation is to be the one to make the choice among those closest to the Scribes, either the anointed or he who anointed them. So then this night he can return, although perhaps the Master Reader can return instead? Aye, it shall be either you, the Reader, or...
It shall be either or.
Sir Gilman, please make your decision quickly, lest it shall be forfeit. I do not know for how much longer the light of the stars shall offer you this gift. Good minstrel, why, the choice which you present unto this knight is very simple then. Master Reader, this knight hereby declares you shall be free. Sir Gilman wishes to give up his freedom so that you may regain yours. Very well. Reader, sir, the choice which Gilman made, or rather the choice which he gave, is now yours to make instead.
This choice, it may keep bouncing back and forth like this. Absurd.
It may, until such time as one of you is willing to accept the burden and the outcome of the choice. That is the trial, and I fear that there is little time remaining now.
Reader, if you and your companions are too cordial with each other to accept that freedom, either one of you, then I shall gladly take it. Freedom ought to be more than some flirtatious trifle to exchange.
Reader, what is your will? Should I just go myself? We will return ourselves. Or should we? This is a tough choice. I wonder what the implications are. I think... Gilman, you can go. You are decided. You have chosen Sir Gilman. He looks at you with some astonishment. Sir Gilman, sir, do you accept the reader's choice, or shall you make another? Then this knight hereby accepts. Though such a gift is too much, good Master Reader, it is too much. Then it is done. You see a look of genuine surprise flash across Sir Gilman's face, and then he is gone. Alright. You gave a chance at freedom to that so that Sir Gilman may yet have his.
Godspeed, Sir Gilman. By the Scribes. No stars remain aloft. The cycle of the rites. It is finished.
Alright, now let's see what happens.
Commonwealth. What shall become of it?
Let's see what happens up there.
What shall become of us? Nightwings. The opportunity to gain your freedom from the downside. Was it not enough?
Ooh, do we see the Commonwealth now? Does the waterfall invert itself? And that night, the exiled Sir Gilman returned to the Commonwealth. He was to be the last. The stars had faded and the cycle of the rites had run its course. He found the Commonwealth in great upheaval. Spurred by the efforts of 6 liberated exiles, Wolfred Sandalwood's revolutionary plan had incited the masses. These exiles and the starless sky portend the return of the Scribes. The people surged into the streets, shoulder to shoulder. Led by the 6 exiles, their voices shook the heavens. The leadership of the Commonwealth panicked. No blood was shed that night, and by dawn it was over. The leaders of the Commonwealth had cast themselves back into exile, or joined in this new case. Thus, in its 838th year, the Commonwealth had fallen. the new Saharian Union declared its sovereignty in the next year. Among the changes its elected leaders ushered in, they vowed never to cast their people into exile, and they abolished the old Commonwealth decree forbidding literacy. Today, we still remember all of this. And we remember the exiles of the downside, whose deeds led to the dawning of our age, whether they returned or not. True freedom, achievement unlocked. Oh. Can we look at what happened? What became of them? With the rights drawn to a close, the slot market's revenues fell precipitously, and Falcon Ron was forced to liquidate his assets and close up shop. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those of an entrepreneurial leaning, this time of hardship led to an epiphany, or at least a sudden change of fortune. One day Falcon Ron had a run-in with a messenger imp bearing news from the other side. Ron gave to it one of his remaining trinkets, which could not be sold. The following week the messenger imp returned to him, bearing a tidy sum of wealth in newly minted coinage from the Saurian Union. Falcon Ron cut a long-term deal with the messenger imp then and there. Though his trade remained a grey area from a legal standpoint in the Saurian Union, the newfound fame of the downside caused Falcon Ron's goods to explode in popularity. He later signed an elaborate agreement with Big Bertrude's and found a distribution partner on the other side through Rookie Greentail, whose own business had expanded. Especially in the Saurian Union, Falcon Ron's goods are still known for their superior quality, though he assumes no liability for any side effects. Right, let's go through them like this. Yeah. Bertrude. Several exiles of the Nightwings cared more for the plan of Sandalwood than to return home from the downside. The crone called Big Bertrude was a prime example. She had found a suitable environment to live within the dismal region known as Flagging Hands. There she had built up a thriving place of business known to many exiles in the land. With the rites having ended, she returned to her preoccupations, working away almost as though nothing had happened. When one gets to be more than 400 years of age, perhaps, then even monumental events such as the culmination of the rites or the collapse of the Commonwealth are seen as trifling matters. Much of her effort was doubtless due to the influence of Sandalwood, someone whom she had admired for decades. He had made clear that he could not requite her feelings for him, but what could have been a hurtful dismissal led only to a deeper understanding between them. By and large, Bertrude focused on her work, whether casting small enchantments or imbuing talismans. The work brought her a sense of purpose, she would say. In the Commonwealth, such services were strictly forbidden, but in the downside, there was a real need for simple luxuries, which the competing slug market could not always provide. Thus did Big Bertrude continue to live up to her name, and the tales of her days with the Nightwings made her that much more the living legend. Ray! Let's see then. The Commonwealth had never provided a sense of home for the one they had called Ray the Wretched. So she was surprised on her return that she was so well treated. She felt uneasy about it, and besides, she knew that she would do her best to fulfill the pledge she had made to her friends. Even she could not have expected the impact she would have on the events that followed, which gave rise to the Saurian Union. Despite not fitting the image of any of the 8 scribes, Ray nonetheless stood out alongside the others amid the teeming masses on the night of Scribes' return. She spoke of the scribes with such conviction and sincerity that the crowd was very moved. After the fall of the Commonwealth, there was a renewed interest in the legend of the 8 scribes and many new interpretations of their histories and teachings. Ray found herself at the center of all this. Her way of speaking continued to compel a growing audience. She swayed many people from their astralist beliefs. Soon the Eighth Ward, which had lost favor with the people during the reign of the Commonwealth, sought her out and asked her formally to join, and she did right away. Among her friends, she always remained close with Tiso, who, more than anyone, could always make her laugh. She cited her relationship with Jodariel as the single most important in her life. Jodariel would always provide for her a circumspect perspective and the wisdom of experience. Rey always was devoted to her faith, but more so to her friends. Many people in the Saurian Union decided that her gentle manner and unwavering conviction helped them brave the changing times with courage and with grace. Hedwyn. After his liberation, Hedwyn was instrumental in the events leading to the fall of the Commonwealth and was vital to the outcome of the plan. The peaceful outcome of the Scribes' return was attributed to several key factors. One of them was the underlying ambition of the plan itself. Another was Hedwyn's visibility among the people in the streets. Identified to be a liberated exile, he was believed to be Golgothanian reborn. More importantly, however, was that one of the winged harps of the High Wing remnants accompanied him. She was later identified as Fikani Shang. Their bond was symbolic of what was at stake that night and proved vital to the peace that followed. In all his days as the leader of the Saurian Union, Hedwyn oft confided in his friend Jodariel. Despite her intense manner, there was no one whom he trusted more in times when circumspection was required. Hedwyn would often think back about the vow he made at the beginning of his quest for freedom. Although he cherished all the friendships he made, he had pledged Jodariel, Rookie Greentail, and the Reader of the Nightwings that they might all be free together. He had broken that vow, for in the end, not all of them were able to return. A terrible guilt over this darkened his mood for a time. However, the others whom he still knew lifted his spirits, much like he had often lifted theirs. All of the Nightwings knew the stakes. While the others who stood with the Nightwings were not able to remain in contact thus, Hedwyn thought of each of them often, and so in turn did they oft think of him. Sir Gilman. When the worm Gilman returned to the Commonwealth, he believed that he had regained something even more important than his freedom, his honor. Gilman relinquished his knighthood and declined an opportunity to serve as captain on the Blood Border. He was not interested in fighting any longer. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those such as he, a circumstance soon came about in which there came a need for him to once again make use of his military training. Thankfully, however, the Scribes' return ended peaceably. Gilman was on the edge throughout that night, expecting violence to erupt at any moment, but the moment never came. When the matter was at last put to rest, then Gilman truly knew his time as a knight had ended. He declared to all those in earshot that he would never fight again, unless, of course, there arose some other extraordinary set of circumstances, again requiring him to fight, but he certainly hoped not. He still trained regularly, just in case, especially with his fleet-footed friend, Rookie Greentail. He was always grateful for having studied under the Reader of the Nightwings, without whom he would never have completed his penance. Because of this, and perhaps because they were on opposite sides of the world now, Gilman dedicated his life to him. By that point, he had long forgotten about his days under the leadership of Sir Deluge, his former commander. Breaking free of his abusive leadership was his first step towards gaining a bit of self-respect. Gilman never did return to his homeland of the Sea Dominion and was content to lead a monastic life on a small residence in the hills. It was just high up enough to make him keep striving to conquer his fear of heights. Other than that, an intense daily training regimen and the occasional visit from an old companion was more than enough to keep him optimistic and engaged. He knew by then that honor was not something to be won, but a contract with oneself, to be renewed each day. Jodariel. After her liberation, Jodariel soon became an icon of the movement that led to the collapse of the Commonwealth and the rise of the Saurian Union. Her horns and stern countenance inspired the people to believe that she was Soliam reborn. She became a great, if reluctant, leader. Oh! No! What? No! What happened there? Did my button get... Yeah, my button got stuck. Just great. Wonderful. Excellent. 1 second. I'll look the dialogue up. Okay, I couldn't find anything. Maybe I'll fix it in editing. I mean, I think I should be able to read the lines, and maybe I'll just freeze frame that and talk over it. We'll see. I have the slides in front of me now. I managed to screenshot them in the edit, so I'm gonna read them to you now. In the uncertain times that followed, Jodariel's seasoned expertise often came into play both in matters of security and the state. For instance, she conscripted and trained a team of volunteers in public safety. The community did not know what to make of such a cordial bunch at first, but soon came to value their service. They have stood for the people ever since, and we celebrate their founding day each year. She remained close with Hedwyn all throughout this experience, and they supported each other through their struggles many times. She kept an eye on Ray, who nonetheless demonstrated a surprising knack to get by on her own, though Jodariel was always willing to provide assistance just in case. She continued training on her own, a regimen that grew stricter with each passing year. There were those who sought to train with her, and she sometimes obliged. There remained one other constant in her life. She would always remember her days among the Nightwings, and with fondness for the most part. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. That was unfortunate. That's a relatively new controller too. Just button getting stuck. I don't like that. Okay, Wolfred. When the cycle of the rites ceased, turning, Wolfred Sandalwood turned towards the starless sky and closed his eyes and prayed. It was all that he could do at that stage of his plan. He aspired to assemble with liberated exiles, representing each of the 8 largest ethnic groups composing the population of the Commonwealth. They would stand together as a vision of the 8 Scribes returned, inspiring the masses to embrace an older set of values from before the Commonwealth had tightened its grip. With the rites ending sooner than expected, this ideal scenario became impossible. Sandalwood's own freedom, for instance, was now forfeit, yet the plan did have contingencies. Fortunately, most of those contingencies did not prove necessary. Word reached him that, on the night of the Scribe's return, his fellow liberated Nightwings stood together, and their voices echoed through the streets. These former exiles, who ought to have disappeared into the ranks of the Commonwealth, Commonwealth's own leadership, now stood united with its people, who poured from their homes in solidarity. It was imperative to Sandalwood that this stand against the Commonwealth be peaceful in its nature. An overwhelming show of popular support would be more than enough. Ensuring this was his priority, and in the end the result was self-evident. The plan's goal had been achieved. Sandalwood kept busy after that, as much as possible, providing counsel from afar to those who would be at the forefront of the birth of the Saurian Union. Of course, being stranded in the downside meant that there was only so much he could do. Resting assured that the future of the nation was in capable hands, he turned his attention to the remaining exiles of the downside. They might never return to that new nation, but at least they could experience its triumphs and its struggles in some vicarious way. So he took to his old work, writing and printing. As literacy began to spread again throughout the Saurian Union, so too did exiles of the downside take to it. For his part, Sandalwood helped to teach as many as he could. More than that, he provided the material to read, a semi-annual report about the latest events, both in the Saurian Union and the downside. This periodical gave many exiles something to look forward to. He welcomed the company of the reader of the Nightwings at every opportunity and counted him a trusted friend and a keen editor. As Wolfred Sandalwood gained more fame throughout this land for all his sacrifices and his contributions, it is said that he remained steadfast about two things. The first was that the cause itself ought to remain in focus. The freedom that the people had achieved, it was a gift to be cherished, a set of values that needed to be nurtured. The second point he made was that he himself had little to do with the outcome. He would often praise the exiles of the Nightwings who had stood with him, each in turn by name. He never forgot any of them. One day, to commemorate his birthday, the people of the Saurian Union unveiled a monument depicting him and the Nightwings as imagined in their prime. While Sandalwood did not learn of it until much later, it is said that he was moved to tears then by the gesture. It has since ensured that those of us with memories more fallible than that of Sandalwood likewise remember the achievement of his fellow former exiles and our cause. Let's go through our people first and then them. After regaining her freedom, Pamitha Vane found herself in a difficult position. Having once betrayed her people of the Highwing remnants, she knew that she would not be welcomed in her native home. She did not trust the Commonwealth either. Instead, she found her place among Wolfred Sandalwood's agents, who were busy doing their part to fulfill the plan. As it turned out, the plan was a success. Pamitha Vane stood shoulder to shoulder with her other fellow former exiles, and, truly, they were a sight to behold. A disturbing rumor later spread that night. The Highwing remnants were slated to mount an assault, which for some reason never came to pass. Pamitha denied any knowledge or involvement. Afterwards, Pamitha played an active part in negotiating terms between the Highwing remnants and the new nation that would become the Saurian Union. Her previous attempt at something of the sort led her to exile. She must have felt some satisfaction to succeed this time around. Sometime later, Pamitha had an unexpected run-in with Rookie Greentail, with whom she had spent a fair amount of time while traveling with the Nightwings. Under these new sets of circumstances, it turned out the two had more to talk about, and rather more in common. They would often put to test which one was able to outdrink the other. It is unclear as to which one of them prevailed in that contest in the end. One day, Pamitha received an invitation to return to the Highwing remnants, where she was to be fully pardoned. She held out hope that she might see her blood sister Tamitha there, knowing full well that Tamitha did not regain her freedom. Tamitha did later learn that Pamitha was welcomed back by their people. However, she never responded to her blood sister's attempt to contact her. Pamitha, in turn, did not expect forgiveness from her at any point. Nonetheless, she kept on trying to reach out, she said, to ruffle up her feathers just a bit. Later, when asked, Pamitha Vane admitted she felt as though she had no home to call her own. This was during an interview conducted amid an extensive trip abroad, for she had traveled thousands of leagues beyond the bounds of the Saurian Union. Pamitha continued to journey thus, citing that it reminded her of when she was younger and could fly unfettered. Rookie. After Rookie Greentail earned back his freedom, he returned to a lavish welcome ceremony in the Commonwealth, as was the tendency for liberated exiles. It was everything he could have hoped for, and soon he was well off, surrounded by luxury and choosing between various exciting opportunities. However, he must have given in to his better judgment, as he did end up siding with Wolfred Sandalwood's revolutionary forces as he promised. On the night of Scribes' return, Greentail was there with the others, inspiring the masses. He never looked prouder, the very image of Jomio Manymane himself. When dawn finally came and it became clear that the Commonwealth, that everybody knew, would be no more, he realized many new opportunities awaited. He began quite a lucrative career for himself, manufacturing and selling replica merchandise inspired by the downside. His main struggle was to meet demand. An aspect of his conscience cautioned him against making light of such things, but the money was too good, and soon his family was well off, as he always said. One of his orders of business was to seek out one of his old companions, Pamitha Vane, to whom he took a liking during their quest for freedom. They bonded further over love of drink. and supported one another through uncertain times that lay in store. He also kept in close touch with Gilman, ever the perfect practice partner. They would train together often, taking care to stay in tip-top shape as much as possible throughout the years. Greentail always did his best to keep in touch with all his many friends, and knew that he owed his fortunes to them. He made a special point of staying close with the group of friends he came to know so well during his time with the Nightwings, wherever they were. They shared a special understanding that put even Greentail at a loss for words sometimes. Oh, you. After the cycle of the right ceased turning, records of what happened to the Black Wagon of the Nightwings become inconclusive and contradictory. Some accounts suggest that the exiles of the Nightwings who remained in the downside continued to make use of the Black Wagon as their place of shelter and their means of travel. However, there is no record of what happened to the wagon's contents, such as the Book of Rites or the Beyond the Crystal, said to be haunted by the apparition Sandra the Unseeing. One possibility is that, when the lone minstrel took his leave, he took the Beyond the Crystal with him, for he was thus obliged. By this line of reasoning, however, the Black Wagon itself should have been taken also. Others remain skeptical that the Beyond the Crystal ever existed, or rather that the visions that it granted were anything other than the result of an active imagination or a fever dream. The bog dwellers of the southern bogs offer still another explanation, for they are familiar with binding enchantments. If there existed such an object, in which the Sisters of the Ark had been expelled for more than 800 years, then the enchantment would have expired along with the light of the stars. What this would have meant for Sandra and the Beyonders is difficult to say for certain, other than it may have meant that they were finally released. Nevertheless, the fates of Sandra and the Beyond the Crystal remain unknown. Yet, those exiles of the Nightwings who claimed to have seen this apparition all spoke of her with degrees of reverence or perhaps a little fear. I didn't like how she spoke to Ray, to be honest. So let's see what it is about Tiso, what he did. The imp called Tiso was the first of his kind to achieve liberty throughout the rites. While he was not the only imp trained in the ways of the Scribes, imps are native to the downside and thus care not for traveling abroad. This made them useful to triumvirates. Yet Tiso had a different calling, and the Nightwings believed that he too could play a key part of Wolfred Sandalwood's plan. During the night of Scribe's return, he stood out to the populace as something of a miracle. They had only heard of the downside imps before, from legends of Haub the Swallow. Afterwards, he became something of an icon representing both the fall of the Commonwealth and the beginning of a new era. He would visit his friend Ray at every opportunity. She was among the few who could consistently interpret what he meant, and they were always close since first they met. Wolfred Sandalwood would sometimes send him little gifts, all the way from the downside. Despite the insurmountable distance between them, their friendship proved more than resilient. Tiso often missed the interactions with the reader of the Nightwings. They had quickly built quite a rapport back in the downside, and Tiso would often express wistful gratitude for all the time conducting the rites along the Nightwings, who made such sacrifices for him. Other than that, Tiso was diligent about his role as something of a living artifact, and helped interpret for the messenger imps that relayed news to and from the downside. Despite having gained significant celebrity, he never let it go to his head, although he did take full advantage of his access to the Saurian Union's fishing industry. Alright, let's see what the minstrel has to say. Oh, is it both of them? After the cycle of the rites ceased turning, the lone minstrel bade the remaining Nightwings take the Black Wagon and seek their fortune elsewhere in the downside. Their parting was heartfelt but brief. He remained there at the summit of Mount Elodial with Celeste, where the two of them would chronicle the final outcome of the cycle. Neither Tariq nor Celeste were ever seen again. We know all this now through song attributed to them. Some claim these songs originated in the taverns of the Saurian Union and merely were imbued with weight of folklore. However, exiles liberated from the downside corroborated each other's claims at having met this duo that presided over the liberation rites. Another folktale suggested these minstrels were heralds of the Scribes. Having fulfilled their obligations, they departed the world we know and rejoined their patrons. One of their famous songs describes another simpler outcome, that the two gave up their duties to the rites in favor of a life that they could share together. In any case, they are likely to remain the subject of such verses and such songs, for it was they who watched over the rites and ushered in our times. Alright. And then the other ones, okay. Where should we start? Let's start at the bottom with my best friend. At least outside of the outside of the Nightwings. As the cycle of the rites drew to a close, it grew evident that a chance at freedom from the downside had forever slipped from Dalbert and Alma Oldheart's grasp. Thus, they and the exiles of the Fate returned to Jomio Valley. There they struggled to get by, as exiles of the downside tend to do. Sometime after the rites had ended, the Oldhearts at last heard the news that the Commonwealth had fallen. This was well after the fact, of course, but it brought old Dalbert great joy. Despite his forthright manner, he had no love for the nation that cast him down, along with his son. Dalbert Oldheart passed peacefully in his sleep before the next new moon. In his final days, he implored his son to undertake a pilgrimage of the Scribes. Alma never shared his father's view of the Scribes, but respected Dalbert's wishes, and so after a period of mourning, Alma began his new journey. Not a day went by that Alma Oldheart did not think about his father, and give thanks to him, and speak to him at morning and at night. Would that the stars yet shone, for surely Dalbert's would be there among them, smiling down at his son and watching over him and his kin. Then you. After the final liberation rite, Landel refused to believe that the rites had truly ended. He would sit through night after consecutive night, staring into the blackness of the sky, awaiting any kind of sign that he might gain another chance at freedom. No such sign ever came. His fellow accusers started to express concern for him. Survival had become their top priority once the liberty had slipped from their grasp. But Landel dismissed them as weak fools. He insisted, rather forcefully, that any evening now the stars would shine for him again, and mark the day towards his inevitable freedom. He was, of course, mistaken. The others in his triumvirate were left with little choice but to abandon him. After that, the exile known as Landel the Liar was never seen again. However, there have since been sightings of a bedraggled demon who wanders the downside and bears Landel's cruel contenance, suggesting he yet lives. Sir Deluge. All his life, Sir Deluge has fled from one danger only to find himself facing another. He had escaped a war-torn... He had escaped the war... breather, and then tried again. He had escaped the war-torn waters of the Sea Dominion. He had escaped the blood border of the Commonwealth. And now, he had escaped the rites. After the rites had ended, many exiles wrapped up in the ancient test were crestfallen as their last chances to return to their homes vanished along with the stars above. But Deluge did not mind, for this outcome meant that, at last, there was no burden of responsibility weighing down on him. While most of his fellow exiles of the Pyre hearts yet longed for the waters of the Sea Dominion, driven as ever by their impulses towards conflict, Deluge settled down. With him remained one of his companions, one Lady Seagrass, who had taken a liking to him for some reason. Lady Seagrass, she's a worm knight, duty-bound to serving Sir Deluge and the Pyre hearts, okay. Reportedly, they disappeared into the waters of Worm Gulf, which may begin to explain the significant increase in worm population observed in the vicinity. Wonderful. After the cycle of the rites had ceased, Witch at Milvi returned to the Flagging Hands region, where she sealed herself within the pit of Milith. There, even her fellow Even her fellow exiles of the Withdrawn allegedly grew unnerved after a time and left her to her vile work. Sometime later, the pit of Milith erupted into flame, so intense was the conflagration that it could be seen all the way from Jomio Valley. Arson was suspected, though the cause was never verified, and many bog dwellers in the region were forced to flee. A tempest blowing from the north finally quenched the flames. When at last the ashes settled and the grounds had cooled, the site of the fire was scarred beyond recognition. No trace of which at Milvi could be found. As for the contents of the pit of Milith, which notably included a profane object thought to be the remains of Islach, all of it was gone as well. Back in the Sarian Union at Milvi's, repeated threats of the return of Islach were thoroughly investigated and no credence was found to any of her claims. And what about you, my friend? Barker Ashpaw never had much interest in returning to the Commonwealth, for he always found its bylaws to be stifling. So when the rites ended, he did not care at first. He soon grew very bored. The rites had given his life a certain sense of structure he had always needed. He missed the raw anticipation of it all. He decided to continue conducting the rites for the thrill of it. He bent some of the rules and replaced some of the objects, but it was close enough. His packmates, the dissidents, proved more than happy to participate, and thus they ran against each other back in Jomio Valley. Gradually, other exiles familiar with the rites, as well as those who had not heard of it at all, started to take an interest. They ended up giving Barker Ashpaws some healthy competition. His old feud with Rookie Greentail ceased meaning anything to him, and he forgot all about it amid his new pursuit. Ultimately, even Barker Ashpaws, who had led such a directionless existence at that point, found something of a calling through the rites. Whether he took the rites less seriously than any other exile of the time, or more, was oft debated by those who watched him work. Throughout her exile, Tamitha Vane was motivated by a single goal: to return to the Commonwealth and exact vengeance on her ancient enemies. When she realized the rites had ended and that she would never see her mountain home again, she nonetheless remained determined to aid her people however possible. She had gathered certain information pertaining to the intentions of the Nightwings, who had formed a pact to regroup on the other side after the liberation. Other such reports exposed certain weaknesses in the Commonwealth defenses and revealed to the Highwing remnants the opportunity for a risky but potentially impactful strike. As Tamitha could not participate in the assault, she learned what happened well after the outcome. On that night, known as the Scribes' Return, the Commonwealth had fallen. The Highwing remnants thus prevailed at last, without even having to fight. Soon after the fall of the Commonwealth, Tamitha learned her blood sister Pamitha was an accessory to the successful outcome. Tamitha was very skeptical of this, but as similar reports kept mounting, she soon accepted the prevailing opinion, however grudgingly. Once a messenger imp arrived bearing some sort of message, seemingly from Pamitha. However, Tamitha turned it away. She would not give in to an impulse to forgive. Knowing that the conflict on the other side had ended, Tamitha retreated to the crags of Black Basin and grew even more distant. Those closest to her surmised that her ability to reconcile with her blood sister was at the heart of this, though for her part Tamitha never once admitted to any such weakness. Then how about you?
More spectacular.
When Manly Tinderstorff realized the rites had ended and that he no longer could return to the Commonwealth through this ancient means, he was outraged. He cursed the scribes, spewing forth such a slew of blasphemy as to be very unbecoming of one of his high statures and bearing. When at last he calmed himself, he focused all his energies on attempting to find another means of homecoming. He maintained regular contact with his wealthy family on the other side via messenger imp and used their vast resources to explore other means of escape. He tried using an elaborate pulley system. He attempted to retrofit a flying black wagon with superior propulsion. He tried an imp raft, a hot air balloon, even prayer. Nothing worked. There was only one way to escape the downside, and now it was gone. Tindersdorf bankrupted his family in these vain attempts. At last, such was his shame that he retreated to the teeming woods of Black Basin, to Cinderroot. There he yet wallows, complaining to his comrades of the chastity who still put up with him, either about his own misfortune or the latest news from the other side. Of course. And you? Once it became clear to Ignarius that the rites were drawing to a close, he knew that it was time for him and the Tempest to call it quits. But first he and the Tempest decided to celebrate, and that they did for many, many nights. The revelry did eventually subside, the exiles parted amicably and went their separate ways. He roamed the downside, then searching for some meaning in his life, sometimes taking odd jobs requiring his brute strength. He never remained alone for very long, and took on many lovers in his time. However, he sometimes thought about the one he had called Curly Horns, and what became of her. Though his glory days as the most powerful conductor of the rites had long since passed, he always enjoyed the fearsome reputation he had cultivated in that time. Alright, and you? After the Shimmer Pool closed for what would be the last time, Oralek looked around him, in the flickering light of the Nightwing still burning pyre. He then turned to the Fall of Soliam and looked up towards the black starless sky. He cursed the eight scribes, then one after the other. After that, he strode forward towards the waters coursing from the side of Mount Elodial, and without hesitating, he cast himself down. Oralek's body was never recovered. The drop from Mount Elodial does not appear survivable, though Oralek did survive it once. At that time, however, he was filled with fury. Such was the betrayal that he had suffered when his fellow exiles claimed his rightful freedom. This time Oralek was filled with nothingness, and chose to leave the downside in the one way he still knew he could. The other Nightwings who were witness to this never forgot what they saw. There is one more account which warrants mention. The Nightwings conducted the rites under the guidance of the reader. Little is known of him. However, some accounts of him begin to paint a picture. We know he was of common birth, always directionless and prone to misremembering at times. The journey to the downside left him close to death. It was then that the Nightwings found him. They brought him from the brink. He showed them the path. They showed him the path, I think. No, he showed them... Yeah, he showed them the path, of course. He pressed onward with the others. He made a vow to help his friends be free. Thus did the cycle of the rites commence its final turns. When the final rite arrived, the reader's freedom was at stake. In the end, however, he remained in exile. From that point on, accounts of him diverge. It is said the voice which troubled him, he never heard again. Some say he sailed across the Sea of Solace, though whether that is true only he knows. Someday perhaps the reader's own star shall emerge. Then it shall pierce the dark of night in all its brilliant glory. Until such time, and ever after, all of us give thanks. Now, I assume that's the end of it, with the credits about to roll. Should I just let the music play and give my thoughts later? I'll let the song play.
Found his way home. Ariel, mother to many a foundling, she has found her way home. Rookie Greentail has proved his worth and returned to his family by the grace of the scribes. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. The moon-touched girl hears the scribes in the world all around her. They have guided her home. Tizo prevailed, first of his lowly kind, to ascend from the downside. He has found a new home. Sir Gilman the Bold, ever in his quest, finding honor and glory, he has found his way home. Hameth the Thane, having pleased the scribes, seeking only forgiveness, she has found her way home. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. Bound together, spirits tender, strands unbroken, scribes awoken.
The great mastermind, Wolfred Sandalwood, saw his plans turn to action. He remained till the end. The bog dweller Bertrude kept their foes at bay with her finest enchantments. She remained till the end. The reader at last made the night wings whole, having bound them together. He remained till the end. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. Now at the end, as we bid farewell and return to the stars, we shall find our way home. We shall find our way home. We shall find our way
And there we are. Okay, so final thoughts. I really enjoyed this. I'm not a fan of sports games usually, and this is essentially a sports game, even though it's not a real sport. But I think like maybe 10 episodes or so ago, I've changed my opinion on the order, how much I like those 3 games that I've played in this series. And this one has become my favorite of the 3. Even though gameplay-wise, you know, the rides, they're fine, they're fun enough, they don't outstay their welcome. It's not really something that I'm personally into, but I am a sucker for characters and story. And this game had so many fun characters. I really enjoyed the story in the end, and that is sadly the thing that that Transistor was lacking, in my opinion. Even though it had the most fun gameplay out of all of these games, it didn't have much in terms of character and story. And this one had much more than I ever would have expected from a game like this. And in the end, I really enjoyed this. I really had a blast with that. And next we're going to play some Hades. Now, I've played Hades before, quite extensively, but I still want to revisit it before Hades 2 comes out. So, just a couple of episodes to get back into the swing of things with that before Hades 2 comes out. I don't know when that would be. It might have like an early access again. If that's open, then I'll probably do that. We'll see. I guess only time will tell. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you then. Goodbye.